A very good afternoon to all of you. I, Chahat Ibrol, Assistant Professor, Law Department, Trinity Institute of Professional Studies, Dwarka, welcome you all to the exclusive seminar on World Cancer Day, which is organized by the Department of Law of TIPS in association with the Southwest District Legal Service Authority. World Cancer Day is celebrated every year on 4th February. It is the global initiative led by the Union of International Cancer Control. The theme for World Cancer Day 2021 is I Am and I Will. This year is a reminder of the enduring power of cooperation and collective action. Today, it gives me immense pleasure to welcome our resource person, Dr. Abhishek Raj, oncologist, Akash Healthcare, Dwarka, for his esteemed presence. I would also like to welcome Dr. Bharka Bhel, Director, TIPS, Dr. Shashi Bala, Principal, Law Department, TIPS, and also all the present faculty members and all the participants. Now I would like to request Dr. Barkha Bell, Director TIPS, to kindly address the gathering.
Thank you, Chahat. Good afternoon, everyone. Cell of Trinity Institute of Professional Studies, in collaboration with Southwest District Legal Service Authority, is privileged and honored to host a webinar on World Cancer Day. I extend my gratitude towards Honorable Ms. Manu Goyalkar, who gave her consent to organize this program and has always been a great support for all such enriching sessions. I heartily welcome our honorable guest speaker, Dr. Abhishek Raj, oncologist, and is looking forward for the insights from him on the said topic. Each year on 4th February and is global uniting initiative led by the Union for International Cancer Control. Created in 2000, World Cancer Day has grown into a positive movement for everyone, everywhere to unite under one voice to face one of our greatest challenges in history. The inform and encourage people on its prevention, early detection, and treatment to reimagine a world with collective efforts where millions of preventable cancer deaths are saved and access to life-saving cancer treatment and care is equal for all no matter who you are or where you live. This year's theme is I Am and I Will, which is being continued since 2019. This is the last year to observe this theme. One of the motto of the theme is together all our actions matter. We can work together to reduce cancer risk factors. We can work together to improve cancer control and achieve global targets to reduce premature mortality from cancer. My advice to all of you is that to lower the risk for many types of cancers as well as other various diseases, one should avoid cigarettes, limit alcohol, reach a healthy weight, and should do regular exercise, which are great steps toward preventing cancer. Adopting a healthy diet can also play a vital role. Therefore, aim to build your diet around a variety of antioxidant rich fruits and vegetables, nuts, beans, whole grains, and healthy fats. At the same time, try to limit the amount of processed and fried foods, unhealthy fats, sugars, and redefined carbs you consume. With this, I once again thank Dr. R.K. Tandon sir, for providing a platform to conduct these types of sessions all through the year. I would also like to thank Dr. Shashi Bala ma'am and all her team members for conducting this webinar. With these words, I welcome all of you once again to this program. Thank you. Over to you, Chahat.
Thank you, ma'am, for your kind words. Dr. Abhishek Raj has completed his MBBS from Maulana Azad Medical College, Delhi University in 2008. He did his MD Internal Medicine in 2014 from University College of Medical Sciences, New Delhi. He was the senior resident in Department of Medical Oncology, AIMS, for the period of 2014 to 2016. He has also completed his doctorate of medicine in 2019. He is also the co-investigator in national and international journals. He was former associate consultant in Department of Medical Oncology, FMRI, Gurgaon, and presently he is working as medical oncologist, hematology, BMT, as at Akash Healthcare Super Speciality Hospital, Dwarka, New Delhi.
Hello? Hello, am I audible?
Yes, Abhishek, you are audible.
Yeah. Thank you, Chahat, for such a lovely introduction. And thank you, Barkha ma'am. You have made my job easier by mentioning what all strategies we should adopt to prevent cancer or to detect cancer early. And as you rightly said, that it's more than just celebrating this day as a World Cancer Day. It's a symbolism. It's the fight that we doctors, that our patients and their relatives, they endure while fighting this deadly disease. And unfortunately, 50% of such cancers are preventable. So it's the second most common cause of death worldwide. So that is something that should not be there. So I'll just briefly try to take you all with a session that will tell about what are the common cancers that are prevalent in India globally, and what are the strategies that we can adopt to identify cancer at an early stage. What are the strategies that we can adopt to reduce the cancer from happening? And if the cancer does develop, what can be done afterwards? So can I share my screen? I think I can.
Yes,
sure, so you can share.
Okay, so is my slide visible to everyone?
Yes, sir, it is visible.
So I'll mostly be talking about the general cancer awareness. So there are a lot of myths associated with cancer. It's important to start the presentation with such a slide because a lot of patients that come to me, they're not willing to take treatment, or they have a lot of doubts that really perplexes me, that why such a question should arise in the mind of a people. They often ask me, is it contagious? So no, it's not. Cancer is not contagious. It does not spread from one person to another. Some people say that, okay, cancer mujhe to nahi hoga. So it can happen to anyone. It can happen to anyone, even persons who are not smoking or they're not engaging in any alcohol intake, they can also develop it. A lot of patients ask me that whether eating sugar will make my cancer worse. So no, it does not happen. There are no studies as yet which proves that, okay, eating sugar will make your cancer worse. Most of the cancer are painless to start with. Cancer can cause pain, but there is a general perception that cancer is a very deadly disease, so it must be very painful. It's not. Most of the cancers are painless to begin with. It results from injury. No, it does not result from injury. There is also there is a mindset in the society that, okay, once cancer has developed, you are doomed. It is incurable. It is better not to take any treatment because it is going to cause a lot of suffering. So such a scenario is not correct. This is not right. Cancer, if detected early, can be cured. Some of the cancers have cure rates as high as 95%, particularly blood cancers, pediatric cancers, early stage breast cancers. They have very excellent cure rates. There is also a myth that patients are not willing to undergo biopsy of a tumor, or they're not willing to undergo surgery. They think that this can spread my cancer to other body parts. So that is again not true. Cell phones, everybody uses cell phone these days. Some people say that, okay, the radiations coming out of cell phone can cause brain tumor or something like that. So again, there is no basis to it. There have been studies done in the worldwide, and there is no data till date to suggest that it can cause cancer. So what is a cancer? Basically, it's an uncontrolled autonomous division of the cell resulting in abnormal growth. So there is one cell. We have normal cells which are rapidly dividing. Like you have an oral ulcer. What happens if you leave it like that? It will heal on its own because your cells are dividing and they are replenishing. So while that is happening, some of the cells can acquire mutation. That mutation can be acquired without any cause, or it can be acquired if the patient is consistently being exposed to certain carcinogens, the factors which can cause cancers, like smoking, like tobacco chewing. So that can make those cancers abnormal, and these abnormal cells, they rapidly proliferate. They are unchecked, and that is why these tumors develop. They are curable if they are detected early. So as we can see in this slide, so there are some normal cells, and there is a small boundary that separates it from the tissue that is lying below. So if these normal cells become abnormal, they start proliferating, they breach that boundary. So initially they are localized just to the area of origin, but you can see that there are some blood vessels and lymph vessels in the underlying tissue. And that is how these cancer cells, they breach that blood vessels, and they can spread to other parts. So these are some of the common risk factors for cancer. We have tobacco. We have some infections like microorganisms which can whose infection can cause cancer. There are some reproductive factors, like it is the age of menarche, what is the age of menopause in ladies, excess production of hormones. Similarly, moderate alcohol intake, certain occupational exposures like exposure to X-rays, or people working in nuclear power plants, so they are exposed to certain radiations which can increase the risk of cancer. Obesity is one of the major cause of cancer these days. Apart from after tobacco and smoking, obesity is one of the major cause of cancers. Unhealthy diet, as ma'am rightly mentioned, there are at least 9 cancers which are associated with unhealthy diet. And if you have a family history of cancer, there are certain cancers which can transmit from family to family. So some of the warning signs or some of the common symptoms of cancer we'll talk about in terms in different cancers also. So if there is an unexplained weight loss, so may be possible that we are dealing with cancer. If there is a breast lump that is detected incidentally, if there is shortness of breath or cough, it can indicate that, okay, there is something wrong with the chest. That means the patient may be having lung cancer. Excessive fatigue is an indication of low hemoglobin. That can happen in blood cancer patients. Patients having pelvic or lower abdominal pain. So these things can happen in patients of ovarian cancer or stomach cancer. Upset stomach can also happen in cases of stomach cancer. Similarly, rectal bleeding or bleeding in stool is an indicator of cancer of the large intestine or the cancer of the rectum. Similarly, feeling full or unable to eat, like earlier your diet was that you were taking 4 rotis, now you feel full after taking just 1 chapati. That can indicate, okay, there is something wrong with your stomach, or there is something wrong with some of the abdominal organs. So I'll just discuss the global and the Indian burden of the disease. That we can see that cancer is the second leading cause of death globally. It is responsible for 8.8 million deaths in 2015. This is a data taken from 2016 publication in Lancet. It is one of the reputed medicine journal. Globally, nearly almost one of every 6 deaths is due to cancer, and approximately 70% of the deaths from the cancer, they occur in low to middle income countries. So that you can imagine the burden of cancer that is there in the low income countries. So cancer causing infections like hepatitis, human papilloma virus, they are responsible for up to 25% of cancers, particularly in the low and middle income countries. The reason for that is simple, that in third world countries, we don't have adequate vaccination programs, so hepatitis B infection can happen later on. Again, hygiene is not taken care of. That is why people are predisposed to human papillomavirus infection. So lung cancer is the most common cancer in the men. In the breast, in the women, it is the breast cancer which is the most common. There are 100 different types of cancer, and there are certain cancer which can have its own different subtypes. So cancer is a very heterogeneous disease. So you can see that you name an area and you can have a cancer developing in that area. Like skin cancer is called melanoma. You can have cancer in the lung, in the oral cavity. You can have cancer of the breast, genital tract, all the abdominal organ like esophagus, stomach, liver, urinary bladder, prostate in males, cervix in females, colon and rectum. Then there are blood cancers and lymphomas, which are the cancer of the lymph nodes. So this is so there is this body called as Globocans. It collects data about the global incidence of the cancer. What is incidence? Incidence is the number of new cases that happen over a specific population that is defined. So if we talk about 2018 data, this is the most recent data that is available to us. So we can see that almost there are 18 million new cases of cancer that happened in 2018 alone, out of which definitely Asia contributed almost 50% of such cases. And if we talk about the global data, so these are the cancers which are the most common. Lung is the most common cancer, followed by breast, colorectum, prostate, stomach, liver, esophagus, and cervix. If we talk about the death, so the lung cancer is not only the most common cancer, it also is the most common cause of death due to cancer. The other common cancers of death are the cancers of the large intestine, which is called as colorectum, cancer of the stomach. It's a very deadly cancer. Almost it has a mortality rate of 80 to 90%. Liver cancer, breast cancer, although it is the second most common cancer, but it is the fifth most common cancer of death. That means a large fraction of breast cancer cases are curable. So this is the Indian data. If we talk about both the sexes, the breast is the most common cancer in all the population, followed by lip and oral cavity, followed by cervical cancer, lung cancer, and stomach cancer. So we had around 11.5 lakh cases in 2018 alone. So you can imagine the burden of disease even in India, and it contributed to almost 7.8 lakh deaths. If we talk about the top 5 cancer in males, it is the lip and oral cavity. We saw in the global data that the oral cavity cancer was not one of the common cancers in the world. It's because tobacco chewing and this smokeless tobacco, this pan and gutka chewing, it is very common in India. And that is why almost 90% of oral cancer cases are contributed because of this. So that is why in India, it is such a big burden of cancer is caused by the lip and oral cavity. Even in female, it is the fourth most common cancer. In males, again, lung is the second most common, followed by stomach, colorectum, and esophagus, which is the food pipe. In females, it is mostly the reproductive organ cancers are more common. The most common is breast, followed by cervix, followed by ovarian cancer, then lip oral cavity, and colorectum. So these are some of the general prevention strategies which ma'am mentioned just before, that you should avoid tobacco use in any form, including chewable tobacco or the smoked tobacco. When you are smoking, you are not just damaging yourself, you're also damaging the others around you. So passive smoking is a well-established risk factor for lung cancer. So if you're smoking in a family and others are also getting exposed to that smoke, so you are unnecessarily exposing that person to a second-hand smoke, which can in turn lead to cancer. So be very careful, not only be responsible for yourself, be responsible for others also, around you also. Moderate alcohol intake is carcinogenic for almost 7-8 different types of cancer. You should include more fruits, vegetables, salads, and fiber in your diet. These are all proven protective factors against cancers, particularly for the cancer of the stomach, of the colorectum. You should avoid obesity. Obesity in itself is associated with 9 different types of cancer, particularly breast cancer, endometrial cancer, stomach cancer, esophageal cancer. So avoiding obesity can be done by adopting a good eating habit, eating a good balanced diet, doing exercise and physical activity. Exercise and physical activity not only reduces obesity, but it in itself is a protective against certain types of cancer. And recently, a large amount, almost if you're taking red meat more than 500 grams daily, it has been proven to be a class 1 carcinogen. That means that it's a big risk factor for cancers of the large intestine and rectum. So you should avoid taking a large intake of red meat. Whenever we are talking of cancer prevention strategies, we can never leave tobacco behind. I'll just give you a brief idea that what a big burden of disease tobacco causes on our healthcare system. It is a leading cause of cancer deaths, and there are more than 10 million deaths each year that is attributable to tobacco. It can be cancer related or non-cancer related. There are 1.2 billion smokers worldwide, and there are 100 million non-smokable tobacco product users, the one that is used in smokeless form. Globally, 41% of men smoke, and 5% of women, they also smoke globally. And lung cancer is the most common cancer which happens because of smoking. India constitutes about 12% of the world's total smoking population, out of which Mizoram and Tripura, they are the ones which have the highest percentage of people's using smoke product. Highest number of PD smokers in India are in Uttarakhand. So there was this global adult tobacco survey. This was a body formed with the help of WHO, which collects data about usage of tobacco everywhere. So we can see that this is the number of current tobacco smokers in India. In males, it is around 42.4%. Females, it is 14% as compared to 5% globally. So apart from so these are different types of cancer like head and neck cancer, lung cancer, even esophagus cancer, blood cancers like leukemia, stomach cancer, kidney, pancreas is another abdominal organ which can be of which smoking is a risk factor, colon, bladder, and cervix. So these are the number of cancers which have definitely proven role because of smoking. And there are other diseases also: heart disease, hypertension, stroke, blindness, gum infection, this aortic rupture, then chronic lung disease, reduced fertility. There are so many other problems also that are associated with tobacco. So as I said, that these are the cancers which are definitely associated with smoking and tobacco usage. So cigarette in itself, it contains 1,000 different carcinogens. So can you imagine, there are 1,000 different carcinogens? I think that contrary to what a lot of people believe, nicotine is not a carcinogen. So the nicotine is the product which is used in smoke. It is basically the habit forming substance. So the more you smoke, the more you want to smoke. So it is because of the nicotine. But nicotine in itself is not a carcinogen. It just increases your tendency to smoke. But there are so many other products that are there in the smoke that causes cancer. So there are various forms of smoked and smokeless tobacco that is used in our country, including bidis, cigarettes, cheroots, chuttas, pipe, chillam, hookah. Similarly, gutka, kheni, pan, jarda, all of these are smokeless form of tobacco that is used by Indian population in various parts of India. So we can see that all these cancers which are caused by smoking, they have different chemical components that are attributed to causing these cancers. I think this is not very important for you. So a lot of patients who come to me, they say, "Ki, doc, see, I've already developed lung cancer. What's the point now? He has a stage 4 lung cancer. He probably has got 1 year to live." So he tells me that, "Doc, I'll continue smoking." So I tell them, no, it is never too late to stop. Even patients who have been detected with cancer at any stage, it is never too late to smoke. Because see, if there is a curable cancer, there is increased chance of recurrence if you continue to smoke. There is always a chance of formation of a newer cancer, right? If you have developed a lip cancer because of a tobacco, probably 5 years down the line, you can develop a throat cancer because the continued effect of smoking is going on. People who continue to smoke, it has been shown in studies that they develop more complications of chemotherapy, radiation, and surgery, which are the common modalities of treatment of cancer. It can lead to delayed wound healing. It can lead to prolonged hospital stay. And as I mentioned just before, that there are increased non-cancer related health problems that are associated with smoking. So now we'll talk about some of the common cancers. So let's start with oral cancer. So it is one of the common malignancies all over the world, particularly in the developing countries. It constitutes almost the third common malignancy. In India, you saw that in the males, it is the most common malignancy that is seen. So oral cancers can start from lip to the oral cavity to the buccal mucosa, your tongue, your posterior part of the tongue, your voice box, larynx. All of this is what constitutes your oral and oral cavity. So these are some of the risk factors, out of which smoking and alcohol consumption is very important. Chronic infections with human papilloma virus, it can cause oral cancer. Almost 10% of cancers are virus related. Previous exposure to radiation in any form can also cause oral cancer. And there are some other factors also which are less important. So 90% of the oral cancer is lifestyle induced. So 10% is associated with infection, and majority of them are preventable. It is very sad that we are losing patients because of this disease, just because this problem of tobacco chewing, it is socially sanctioned. There is no taboo associated with this, so it's quite unfortunate. So what are some of the common signs of oral cancers? So there is an ulcer which is not going away. So whenever there is an oral cancer, this is a full-blown cancer. This usually develops from a precancerous condition that is called as leukoplakia. How does leukoplakia present? There is a whitish or a reddish patch that is present in the mouth, which is not healing. Or there is a persistent pain or tenderness, and when you are swallowing you have a difficulty. That means we are dealing with probably some of the throat cancer. Or there is a node in the neck, there is a swelling in the neck. So whenever you have a cancer, the first place it spreads to, it is the nodes in the neck. So all these signs can be present in case of oral cancers. So whenever we are screening, who should we screen? Patients who are heavily exposed to tobacco product. If they come that, okay, doctor, I want to get myself checked if I have any cancer or not. So basically I have to examine the entire oral cavity, and I have to use a mirror and examine the larynx also. So these are the common areas that I have to examine. So once the patient has developed cancer, the surgery is the mainstay of treatment. If we can take out the entire tumor, that is what is going to cure it. Almost 80% of the work is done by surgery, and a lot of patients, they end up requiring radiation also. And a very few percentage of patients, around 10% of the patients, they end up requiring chemotherapy as well. So these are the common modalities of treatment. For a stage 4 cancer, we have newer modalities of treatment like immunotherapy and targeted therapy available, but they are not curable in most of the scenario. So as we have already discussed, that these are some of the common avoidable risk factors that we should take care whenever we are dealing with oral cancers. So now coming to the second tobacco related cancer is the lung cancer. So lung cancer, again, it will start with a small lesion in the lung, and it will gradually involve. See, with oral cancer, you have an organ that is readily visible. You can always examine that, okay, there is an ulcer here, it's a small ulcer which is not healing. There is a node in the neck, or there is difficulty in swallowing. The problem with lung cancer is that even if there is a 2 centimeter nodule in your big lung, which is almost like 10-15 centimeter long, it will not cause any symptoms. So that is why lung cancers are rarely detected in stage 1 and 2. Stage 1 is like a very small, less than 2 centimeter cancer. Stage 2 is slightly larger cancer. Stage 3 is which has spread to additional local areas. And stage 4 is which has spread outside the body. So in India, if I tell you, almost 60% of cancers of lung cancer are detected in stage 4, and which is quite unfortunate. Stage 4 lung cancer is a death sentence. It does not get cured, and it is almost like 70 to 80% of the lung cancer, it is attributable to smoking or second-hand smoking or pollution. So this is something that is preventable. So as I was telling you that 65% of lung cancer is diagnosed with a 5-year survival rate of only 3.5%. Does this ring a number? 3.5%. There is only 3.5% chance that you are going to live 5 years once you are diagnosed with a lung cancer. Almost 65% of patients are presenting in that stage. So this is a Western data. For Indian data, it will be even more poor. But with early detection, with surgery, incorporation of chemotherapy after surgery, almost 81%, there are certain subset of lung cancers who can be cured by even 85%. So there is a there is a change in the pattern of lung cancer epidemiology over the past 20-30 years. In 1988, if we see, 90% of the lung cancers were smokers, and only 10% were non-smokers. Now it has increased to almost 40% in certain areas. 40% of lung cancers happen in non-smokers. Why is that? Because of the increased presence of air pollution, because of the increased smoking leading to second-hand smoking. So these are some of the common factors why. So that person is coming to me, he says, "Doctor, I've never smoked," but he has experienced a lifetime of smoking thanks to second-hand smoke and pollution. So that is probably the cause why he's developing lung cancer. So these are some of the common risk factors. This is tobacco, second-hand smoking, exposure to asbestos. Certain workers who are working in asbestos factory, they are exposed to lung cancer. They're predisposed to lung cancer. Exposure to arsenic, and this is a radioactive. This is a radon gas, which is a common pollutant, air pollutant. It is also associated with lung cancer. So signs and symptoms are commonly, I told you before that a large fraction of lung cancer patients do not have any symptoms. Maybe they go for a CT scan for a completely unrelated purpose. And the CT scan doctor tells me that, okay, there is a nodule, there is a 2-centimeter nodule that is detected in the lung. And you work up and you find that, okay, it is a lung cancer case. Other common symptoms of lung cancer at presentation is cough, difficulty in breathing, there is hoarseness of voice, there can be associated chest pain, or if the cancer has spread to other parts of the body, it can be symptomatic based on which part of the body is involved, like bony pain can be there, there can be associated headache if it has gone to the brain. So this we have already discussed. This is the signs and symptoms related to the spread of lung cancer to the other part. So we'll briefly talk about the screening. There has been a lot of study that has gone on, that has been going on for the past 20 years in US, that can we do screening and can we detect lung cancer early? So my answer is that if you start doing a general screening in a general population, I think screening is not beneficial in that scenario. So person who has a very significant history of smoking, he was a heavy former smoker, or he is a current smoker who is heavily smoking. In such patients, doing a low dose CT scan every 6 monthly or every 1 yearly, it has shown some benefit that you can probably detect lung cancer in an early stage. So in some patients, after discussing with the family, after discussing with the patients, you can ask the patient to undertake CT screening. And that is one modality that we can offer to our patients who are worried that they might develop lung cancer because of a strong history of smoking in the past. So how do we diagnose lung cancer? Generally with an imaging of the chest by doing a chest X-ray or a CT scan or an MRI. We do a tissue biopsy. We put a needle in the lung and we take a sample of the tissue and we detect that, okay, it is a lung cancer specimen. This is not very important. So these are some of the lung cancer preventive strategy. Basically, the idea is to stop smoking. Smoking, it's easier said than done. It is not easy to stop smoking because of the nicotine. You are so habitually used to it that you crave for it. So you can always consult your doctor that what are the strategies that you can adopt in order to stop smoking. He can prescribe you some nicotine patches or gums. In patients who are heavily addicted, there are certain oral drugs also available to prevent the withdrawal of the smoking that happens in certain patients. And of course, a very strong willpower and a very strong family support of the friends is required whenever you are wanting to stop smoking. So a lot has happened in the management of lung cancer over the past 10 years with the improvement in surgery, improvement in the chemotherapy. Earlier, stage 4 lung cancer, they used to live not more than 9 months, 6 months. But now I have had patients of stage 4 lung cancer who have lived even 5 years. There are newer drugs, newer targeted therapy oral drugs which are available to treat lung cancer. There are immunotherapy drugs which activate your immune system to fight your lung cancer, drugs that are there. So a lot has happened. So lung cancer is no more a death sentence. You can have a reasonably good quality of life with minimal toxicity, in the modern era of treatment. Now we'll talk about breast cancer, which is the most common cancer in the females. So we can see that there are 1 lakh new breast cancer cases every year. There is high mortality because of ignorance. Patients often come that, okay, doctor, I had a lump. I felt the lump 6 months back, but it was not causing any pain. So I thought that it is probably nothing. But only when she started to notice some pain, and by that time it is already late. It has already become stage 3 or stage 4 disease at that time. So the mortality is because of ignorance and later diagnosis. If it is detected early, almost 90-80% cure rates are possible. So so it's not a preventable cancer because there are not many agents, there are not many causative factors known which can be avoided. But yeah, it can be detected early. So if by screening, if we detect it early, we can treat it at an early stage. In US, in countries like USA and UK, there are well-established screening programs run by the government, which is there in place, which mandates every woman to undergo mammography starting at a very early age of 40 years, so that every year you are doing the mammography test, you can detect the cancer very early. And early detection leads to early cure, to high cure rates. In India, unfortunately, screening program is there in place, but implementation is not correct. There is not good implementation. There is lack of knowledge. A lot of people are not aware that something like a mammography or a screening of breast cancer is available. That is why a lot of them are detected late. So you can see that if breast cancer is detected early, there is a 93% survival rate. But if it is detected late, only 6% of such patients are long-term survivors. This we have already talked. So these are certain various stages of breast cancer. So stage 1 is a very small tumor, less than 2 centimeters in size. It can lead to some localized symptoms like breast lump or sometimes discharge from the nipple, bloody discharge from the nipple. Usually it is painless in stage 1 and stage 2. In stage 2, it can be slightly larger inside, up to 5 centimeter size of lump can be there. In stage 3, it has spread to the axilla, your armpits. There are lymph nodes that are just like I was talking to you, that there is a lymph node that happens in oral cancer. Similarly for breast, the lymph nodes happen to be in the axilla. So when it spreads to the axilla, usually it is stage 3. And stage 4 is detected when it has spread to other organs like liver, your brain, your bones, or other lymph nodal areas. So these are some of the common risk factors. It is usually a cancer of the elderly, happens in a average age of 55 to 60 years in India. Obesity is a well-established risk factor. High breast density is also a risk factor. If there is a strong family history of breast or ovarian cancer, that means there can be certain genetic mutation in your family, which can predispose the family members to develop breast cancer. Again, heavy alcohol intake is again one of the risk factors. So these are some of the, so based on the risk factors, you can always decide what are the things that can be avoided to reduce the chances of developing breast cancer. This we have already discussed. So how can we detect early? I was talking to you about mammography, but usually something that can be undertaken very easily is something called as a self-breast examination. It can be started at an age of 20 years, which it includes self-examination of the breast by the patient himself. It can easily be learned from any doctor, any surgeon. And if you feel any abnormality, you can always consult your doctor then that, okay, doctor, I'm feeling this lump in my breast, and what should I do? After the age of 35 years, generally it is recommended that you should annually visit your physician for a clinical examination. After the age of 40 years or 50 years, there are various guidelines that have said that if you do annual mammography is basically like an X-ray of the breast. If you do an annual mammography after the age of 40 years or after the age of 50 years in some countries, you can actually detect it early, and it has an overall reduction in the mortality. That means there is a better breast cancer related outcomes if you detect early or if you apply that screening policy. So it is advisable that anybody who is more than 50 years of age, they should at least do annual mammography. And after the age of 55 years, you can, if nothing is detected, you can do that mammography every 2 yearly. So this is how breast self-examination is done. It should be done 1 to 2 days after the menstruation period is over. In menopausal women, you should do it every monthly on the same date of each month. And pregnant women, again, the same principle applies. So as I was telling that there are certain genetic mutations, that is, these are certain changes in the genes which can predispose you to the development of breast cancer. One of the most common genes is called as BRCA gene. BRCA gene mutation is associated with increased chances of developing certain cancers, most commonly breast and ovarian cancer. In men, it can also cause prostate cancer. So if you have a very strong family, I have a lot of patients who come who say that, okay, my mother had breast cancer, my grandmom had ovarian cancer. So if you get a history that, okay, there is a very strong family history of these cancers in first and second degree relatives, then you can suspect that, okay, there is something wrong with the germline, that is something wrong with the genes. So there are tests now available, very simple blood tests that are available with expert genetic counselors who can tell you that, okay, these genes are mutated, and in such patients you can start screening at a much early age, so that because the risk of developing breast and ovarian cancer in such patients is very high, almost to the tune of 80% lifetime risk of breast cancer in patients who have these mutations. So you can start screening probably at an age of 25 years or 30 years, so that you can detect these cancers early and treat them. So as I was telling that almost 60 to 90% risk of breast cancer in patients who are affected with this BRCA1 mutation, and 45 to 85% if it is BRCA2 mutation. And ovarian cancer, again, with BRCA1, it is 40 to 60% and 10 to 30%. In fact, patients who have completed their family, they are recommended to undergo bilateral mastectomy, bilateral breast removal, or even the removal of the ovaries to reduce the chances of these two cancers from happening. I think a lot of you must have heard about Angelina Jolie, right? Angelina Jolie had this faulty gene, BRCA1 mutation, after which she underwent bilateral mastectomy, which reduced her chances of developing breast cancer. And thanks to her, there was a lot of publicity on the genetic causes of cancer. There was a lot of interest. People started taking on cancer and everything. And a lot of patients now come to me who have an established mutation in this gene, and they come for a counseling that how should we go about doing this. So as far as treatment is concerned, mostly it consists of surgery. Again, the same surgery, chemotherapy and radiation is done. If it is a small tumor, usually we start with the surgery followed by chemotherapy and radiation in some cases. If it is a large tumor, it is inoperable. We start with chemotherapy, reduce the size of the tumor, and then undertake surgery followed by radiation. And there are certain special targeted medicines as well as now immunotherapy available to treat breast cancer that is there now. There are certain hormonal treatment also available, which are oral drugs, which prevent the recurrence of breast cancer. And that can be used in almost 60 to 70% of the cases. So now coming to the cervical cancer, cervix is a part of the female reproductive system. So it is one of the dreaded cancers. And if it is, again, it is detected early, almost 60, 70, 80% patients are cured. So in India, almost in every 7 minutes, one Indian woman dies of cervical cancer. So you can imagine what a big burden of disease this cervical cancer causes. So it is caused by infection of the genital tract with human papilloma virus, just like certain cases of oral cancers. It is preventable by simple means. So you can do a Pap test. I think a lot of you might be knowing about this Pap test. It's a small smear test that is taken from the genital tract, and it is a method that is used to screen for cervical cancer. If there are certain abnormal cells that are detected in the microscope when you do the Pap test, then you need to consult your gynecologist. Then they will advise you certain battery of tests that is there. So if you start this screening at an early age, so there is a chance that you can detect this cancer at an early age and at an early stage. And the other test is your HPV DNA. So this HPV virus, it has a DNA which can be detected by PCR. PCR is one of the techniques that is used to detect DNA. Like you must be knowing about COVID PCR. This is quite common nowadays. that COVID is also a virus and it is detected by a PCR test. So these two tests usually combined, that is used to screen the cervical cancer. Again, it's a preventable cancer. Now we have vaccines also available that can be given, which prevents the formation of HPV infection in the genital tract, and you will not develop cervical cancer. So again, this is a vaccine that is available. I think you should discuss it with your pediatrician. What is the age at which this vaccine should be started? Or if the patient is an adult, you should discuss with your gynecologist at what age this vaccine can be given, in what patients this can be given, because it can prevent almost 99% of cervical cancer. So a global or at least a pan-India immunization program is recommended. It should be done for cervical cancer prevention with cervical cancer vaccine. So in India, there are 27% of the new cervical cases of the entire world is contributed by India, and almost equal number of deaths also. So usually it is a cancer of the elderly, happens in post-menopausal women in the age of 50 to 60 years. So these are some of the risk factors. I think early marriage, tobacco smoking, the patient has multiple pregnancies, they are at a slightly higher risk. Having multiple sexual partners or history of previous sexually transmitted disease like HIV or genital warts, these patients are at a higher risk of cervical cancer. Low socioeconomic status, it contributes to poor genital hygiene. Genital hygiene is very important because poor genital hygiene is associated with this viral infection and it can cause the cervical cancer. And there are certain immunosuppressed patients who are HIV positive patients, because their immunity is not good. So these patients are also at a risk of this HPV virus infection. It can cause cervical cancer later on. So what is generally the strategy of screening in cervical cancer? So patients who are 21 to 29 years old, they should just get the pap smear test every 3 years. Patients who are 30 to 65 year old, they should start both the test. That is, they should do a pap test, that is a PCR test every 5 yearly and every 3 yearly pap smear test. And patients who are more than 65 years of age, they should stop screening if they have normal results for several years in the past. So between 21 to 65 years of age, cervical cancer screening is recommended. So most common symptoms of a cervical cancer is an abnormal vaginal bleeding. It can be associated with a foul smelling discharge from the vagina. It can be associated with unexplained weight loss or unexplained loss of appetite, or there can be sometimes involuntary loss of urine or fecal matter while passing urine. So these are the two vaccines available in India, which prevents against most of the HPV causing virus, which is the HPV 16, 18 and HPV 6 and 11. Usually they are recommended before the patient becomes sexually active, so that this establishment of HPV infection can be prevented. So generally they are recommended, this is the best age, that is between 9 to 12 years you should have all the doses of vaccine. But if the patient is more than 26 years of age or who is already sexually active, they should consult a gynecologist before going ahead with the vaccine. So again, very early stage cervical cancer can be cured by just surgery. If the tumor is large, more than 4 centimeters in size, then they are generally treated with chemoradiation together, chemotherapy and radiation therapy together. And if it is stage 4, generally the modality of choice is chemotherapy and targeted therapy. So ovarian cancer, this is the third most common cause of cancer in the ladies. Unfortunately, screening tests are not as beneficial as we have seen in patients of breast cancer and ovarian cancer. So this is a cancer that begins in the female reproductive organs, which produce the eggs, or they are called the ova. So you should basically, there are no reliable screening tests for it, although there are certain blood tests and ultrasound that is recommended, but it has not shown to be of any benefit in long-term outcomes of the ovarian cancer. Usually the treatment for ovarian cancer is extensive. Unfortunately, a lot of these cases are detected in late stage. Unfortunately, a lot of these cases are detected in late stage, stage 3 and 4, with a high chance of recurrence. Almost 60 to 70% patients, they end up recurring. After extensive surgery and chemotherapy, they have recurrence. But if the patients are detected in an early stage, stage 1 or 2, there is a very high chance of cure. In stage 1, almost more than 90% of the cases get cured with surgery and chemotherapy. And in stage 2, almost more than 70% patients get cured. So I'll skip this because this is probably not important. Again, it is this cancer is again of the elderly, unless there is some genetic mutation present, like I was discussing before. This BRCA mutation is also associated with this ovarian cancer. There are certain risk factors for ovarian cancer. Obesity is very common. Diet which is rich in red and processed meat, smoking, alcohol intake, early age of starting of menstruation or late menopause. Patients who have not given any childbirth, that is called as nulliparity, this is associated with more risk of ovarian cancer. If you have not breastfed your child, again, there is more risk of developing ovarian cancer. Similar thing happens for breast cancer also. And there are certain genetic mutation and family history which predisposes. So as there are more number of pregnancies, the risk of ovarian cancer decreases. Breastfeeding leads to decreased risk in ovarian cancer. Usually the symptoms are related to feeling of bloating, like abnormal sensation in the abdomen, early satiety. You start feeling full after eating very less amount of food. So these are some of the common symptoms. It can be associated with pain in the lower abdomen, which is called as pelvic pain. So these are some of the tests. There is a simple blood test called CA-125, which is elevated in ovarian cancer in almost 60-70% of the cases. But unfortunately, this CA-125, it can be elevated in certain benign problems as well. So it's not a very foolproof test. It can be combined with some vaginal ultrasound. But again, the reliability of this method is only 50%. So unfortunately, we have not got very reliable screening test for detecting ovarian cancer. We do see cases who have been detected incidentally. They have gone for some gallbladder surgery for a stone or something, and doctor ended up detecting a cyst in the ovary, and then he referred to us, and we evaluated and found that it was ovarian cancer. But that is a chance finding. This I have already discussed before. So another cancer. This is the last cancer that I'm talking about. This is the prostate cancer. This is one of the more common one of the more common cancers in the males. It only happens in the males because prostate is a organ that is found in the males, and it is again one of those cancers which can be screened. It can be screened and detected early. So that is why I am telling about this. So I'll just start with some of the myths associated with prostate cancer, that only elderly men get prostate cancer. No, I have seen cases even in 40s and 50s. There is a myth that if I don't feel a tumor, I don't have prostate cancer. No, it's an internal organ. It is an organ around your urinary pipes. So you are not going to feel any tumor. So PSA testing. PSA is one of the tests that is, it's a simple blood test which detects prostate cancer in an early stage. So PSA is a substance that is secreted by prostate cancer cells which get detected in the blood. So it's a very cheap test to detect prostate cancer at an early stage. So PSA testing is beneficial. Prostate cancer is always curable. Yes, 80 to 85% of prostate cancer are curable if we talk about the data from the US, because most of them are usually detected in stage 1, 2, or 3. In India, on the other hand, almost 50% of the patients are detected in stage 4, unfortunately, which is unfortunately not curable. They have a relatively good quality, good duration of life. They usually end up living 5 to 6 years, even after stage 4 detection, but it is not curable to this date. And there is also a myth that, okay, prostate cancer, if I have developed, there is only surgery that is an option. No, there are certain patients who are treated exclusively with radiation treatment and hormonal treatment also. So surgery is not the only choice. So it's a male sex gland. It's a male organ. It's just the size of a walnut that is located just below the bladder, and it is in front of the rectum. So that is why the symptoms of prostate cancer are related to the other organs that are located near it. So this is the second most common cancer worldwide after lung cancer, and it is the 7th most common cause of death in the US. And about 6 out of 10 cases of prostate cancer are usually detected in patients who are more than 65 years of age. In India, it is not a very common cancer. The incidence is 10.66 per 1 lakh population. This is again showing what is the age probability of developing prostate cancer. So these are some of the common risk factors. Mostly the cause is unknown, but few risk factors like obesity, the certain hereditary gene mutation, or certain ethnicity like African race and all, it can predispose patients to have prostate cancer later on. So as I said, that prostate is located very close to the urinary bladder. So a lot of symptoms are related to urine. Patient can have a bloody urine. He has to make a very extra effort, a lot of extra effort to force out the urine. He will be feeling hesitancy that even after evacuation of the urine, he will feel that, okay, he's still having the sensation of urine. So these are some of the symptoms that can happen. If the prostate cancer has metastasized to other organs, most commonly it goes to bones. So patient can have bony pain. He can have paralysis of the lower limbs. He can have lower back pain as well. So these are some of the common symptoms of prostate cancer. And what are the patients who should be screened? So these are the recommendations given by the US Preventive Task Force. It says that above the age of 55 years and below 69 years of age, we should make an individual decision. Like we should make a combined decision with the physician, with the family and the patient about the benefits and risks of PSA, prostate cancer screening. How is prostate cancer screening done? The surgeon usually performs a rectal examination to feel for any prostatic nodule. If he feels any abnormality, he can do a ultrasonography of the prostate, and there is this blood test called as PSA. So PSA levels more than 4. So these three tests combined together provide a complete screening of the prostate cancer. See, the problem is that a lot of prostate cancers are low grade. A lot of prostate cancers, it will not have any impact of life. So you are detected with a prostate cancer which is just like a 1 centimeter in size. Maybe you are detected with a prostate cancer at an age of 68 years. Your average life expectancy is maybe 75 or 80 years. So for 10 years, that prostate cancer is probably not going to grow very much. And you are probably going to die of any other disease at that age as compared to prostate cancer. So that is the problem with prostate cancer screening, that it can unnecessarily detect cancers which eventually don't require treatment, because there are certain prostate cancer patients who don't even require treatment. So that is evaluated on the biopsy. You do the biopsy, we see that, okay, these are very low grade prostate cancer which might not require active treatment, because at an age of 65 or 70 years, these radical surgeries of prostate are very morbid. It can have a significant effect on the quality of life. So that is why this statement is there, that we should make an individual decision about being screened for prostate cancer, because a diagnosis of cancer can cause a scare and it might not even require treatment. So that is why. So these are the doctor will do a digital rectal examination, this prostate specific antigen test that happens. And if these tests are abnormal, you have to undergo a prostatic biopsy, which will detect whether cancer is there or not. Genetic testing is also now recommended in certain groups of patients who have family history or who have a very high grade prostate cancer. So treatment methods are again surgery for removal of the entire prostate at the adjacent tissue, radiation, hormonal treatment. It's a hormone driven cancer, just like breast cancers. This is also a hormone driven cancer. So anti-hormonal treatment is a very effective way to control prostate cancer. And there are certain chemotherapy and targeted therapy that can also be used in stage 4 cancers. So how can I prevent prostate cancers? Most of them are idiopathic. That means the cause is not known, but yeah, the general rule still applies. You should eat healthy. You should do physical exercise. You should quit smoking and get regular checkups, do the screening, get the screening done. So these are the common cancer prevention tips that I have already shared with you before. These are some of the dietary changes that you can incorporate in your lifestyle. You should eat a lot of green leafy vegetables, foods that are rich in antioxidant, nuts, your fresh fruits, your and these processed food are like really troublesome. High calorie diet, the diets that provide a huge sugar rush. So these are the really harmful diets that can that can predispose you to developing cancer. This red meat again. So this is this is what you will find on the World Cancer Day site. So this is the I am and I will. This is the theme of the World Cancer Day 2021. It's all about you and your commitment to act. We believe that through our positive actions together, we can reach the target of reducing the number of premature deaths from cancer and other non-communicable disease. Non-communicable is non-infectious disease by almost 1/3 by 2030. Hope we are able to do that. Amen. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for such an enriching session. So now it's time for a Q&A session. I would request everyone, if you have any query, please put them in the chat box. And over to you, Shashi ma'am. Shashi ma'am would be reading out the queries of the students.
Okay, thank you, Chad. Sir, there are certain queries which are raised by the student. One student is there, that is a Shruti Paul. And the question is, does the regular usage of aluminum foil cause cancer?
No, ma'am, it does not.
Okay.
There are no studies which prove that
Tower radiation cause cancer.
Sorry, ma'am.
Can cell phone tower radiations cause cancer?
No. I just mentioned in the first slide of my presentation that cell phone radiation or associated with the cell phone towers, it has been, there are studies that are carried out. It has not shown any conclusive evidence that it causes cancer of any type.
Thank you, sir. The other question is, does some people have oral cancer or lung cancer despite not consuming tobacco or like material?
Yes. So as I mentioned, if you see my slides of oral cancer and lung cancer, so in oral cancer, it is not just the tobacco chewing which is there. There are other risk factors as well, like infection to HPV. So it was a very incidental discovery. So it was seen that patients who were affected with HIV in Africa, a lot of them were homosexual men, and they were engaging in oral sex. So they found that these patients were at a very high risk of developing oral cancers, particularly cancers of the throat. So then they did some tests, they did some biopsy from the throat, and they found that this viral DNA was found in that material. And that is when they started searching that, okay, this is one of the viruses that can cause the cancers of oral cavity. Apart from that, exposure to radiation is there, one of the causes which can cause. Smoking in other form also, if you are not chewing tobacco, that can also cause cancer. Plus, there are always around 4 to 5% of cancers which cannot be explained, that what is the cause of that cancer. So those are the idiopathic cases that we cannot really pinpoint that what has caused cancer. In fact, ill-fitting denture is one of the common causes of developing oral cancers, because it causes chronic irritation in your area of the mouth where the denture is not fitting properly. So if you have an ill-fitting denture, go to your dentist and get it corrected.
Thank you, sir. The other question is that can
micro no ma'am.
Sir, a lot of questions are there.
Yeah, I can see certain interesting questions. So this one is very good.
Yes,
sir. Would consuming weed cause cancer? I can understand why you are so worried. So don't worry, it does not cause cancer. Weed also is not a habit forming substance, but yeah, its acute effect can be quite troublesome.
Yes, sir. The other one is also the microwave. Microwave radiation can cause cancer.
Microwave does not cause cancer, ma'am. So another question is, does HIV have a treatment? Okay, so HIV till today is not a curable disease. There is only 2 or 3 reported cases of complete cure of HIV using variety of treatment with antiviral drugs and autologous stem cell transplant, but that has unfortunately not been replicated in other patients. But HIV patients can live a reasonably good quality of life. See, diabetes is also not curable, but we don't see diabetes with the same degree of stigma or taboo like you do with HIV. HIV patients, I have seen they live 30 years, 35 years, 40 years, even after diagnosis. We have excellent drugs available to control the viral count. We have excellent drugs to restore our immunity after patient develops HIV. So if somebody develops HIV, he should not be hesitant to consult his doctor and get a good quality of life. So can PCOS?
Sir, one more question is there.
Mhm.
Is that serving a hot meal in a plastic can cause cancer? Means plastic bowl. If we
No, ma'am,
serve
it
the
is not.
hot meal in that.
There are no. No, ma'am. There are no studies which quote that. We should not be reading too much of things that are published on those internet or things like that. Whenever, see, I'll just tell everyone one simple thing, that whenever you are reading something, try to read a scientific journal about that. When you're reading that, okay, this microwave causes cancer, that is just an isolated report you read somewhere, and that creates some doubt in your mind. Okay, so you go back and do some just go on Google and do some search, and you just find a good journal, and you see that, okay, there is a study that has been conducted in some 10,000 15,000 population, and they are concluding that, okay, this does not cause cancer. So that is what a reputed journal is. Just isolated report that, okay, somebody has written a blog that I was continuously being exposed to microwave food and now I have developed cancer. That is never a factual thing, right? So
One
I
more
think
question is there. That is whether from the female candidate, that is a bra can cause breast cancer, or is it
no,
just
ma'am.
a myth?
It is a myth. Definitely a myth. There is another question that is more important.
Only just a myth, basically.
Can PCOS or PCOD lead to cancer? So yes, in itself it will not lead to cancer, but PCOS is associated with certain hormonal imbalances in the body. So an untreated PCOD will have an excess of certain hormones which can predispose to breast cancer. But again, the relative risk, what is a relative risk as compared to a general population who does not have any significant risk factor? It is just to the tune of 1.8. There is 1.8 times more chance of developing breast cancer as compared to this. Okay, can we take creatine? Is it safe? Yeah, even I take creatine. I am a fitness enthusiast, so I take that, and it is absolutely safe. But you should buy it from a reputed company.
Sir, I think, sir, now the question is over. Over to
Okay.
Chahat ma'am. And thank you, sir. Such a lovely, wonderful session.
And it was wonderful.
And you have clarified all the doubts.
Yeah,
what
thank
in
you,
the
ma'am.
mind is there.
I am amazed at the number of participants, 195, which is very good, and I'm really glad that I could contribute to such a beautiful cause. Thank you so much.
Yeah, Abhishek, I also do have some question.
Sure.
That because this also is there, that cooking in aluminium utensils and in non-stick utensils,
Yes, ma'am.
they also lead to
No, ma'am, it does not, ma'am. Till date, we don't have any study concluding that it causes cancer, ma'am. So don't worry. Till date, don't worry. Maybe we have some data coming up next, but we don't have any data to suggest that it does.
Okay.
Over to Chahat ma'am, you can.
Yes, it's my proud privilege to propose a vote of thanks on this occasion. I would like to extend my heartiest vote of thanks on behalf of the Trinity Institute of Professional Studies to our resource person, Dr. Abhishek Raj, who spared time from his busy schedule to grace this event. Today, we had an opportunity to hear your thoughts about cancer awareness and this reducing the global impact of cancer. Further, I would like to express my kind gratitude to Southwest Delhi's Legal Service Authority for always giving us immense support for conducting such enriching sessions. I would also like to thank Dr. R.K. Tandon sir, Chairman TIPS, for giving us such opportunities and motivation to conduct such events. Thank you, Dr. Barkha ma'am, for gracing this event with your presence, and Dr. Shashi Bala ma'am for the constant guidance and support. Last but not the least, I would like to thank all the present faculty members and all the participants who made this event successful. Thank you.